I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you to Off the Trails right here on the Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. We would love to have you. Shout out to Bumblefoot for that awesome intro music. I always appreciate that. You guys go follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Y'all can find me at thecryptidhuntress.com, and please subscribe to my ever-growing YouTube channel. That's the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. I have some awesome shows every Wednesday at 1 p.m. live, 1 p.m. Eastern actually, and also Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern live. So y'all come hang out with me over there at the Cryptid Huntress during the week. Also, if you'd like to support what I'm doing, I have a Patreon. That's the Cryptid Huntress. I would love to have y'all come join us over there. I've got a kick-ass Patreon family. And also I have a shop. It's called War Woman Goods. That's over on Etsy. Shout out to all of my Patreon members, all of my supporters, anybody who's ever bought some vintage jewelry for me. I love you guys. It's much appreciated. All right, y'all. It's World UFO Day today. So happy UFO Day, everybody. And who better to bring on my show tonight than the Jim Goodall, retired Air Force Master Sergeant and world-renowned expert on Area 51. All right, he is in the studio tonight. Don't forget that right after this show, Marquise has an excellent show set up for us tonight over on After Hours. And if we're lucky, he might actually pop in here tonight to come hang out and say hello to Jim with me tonight. Okay, well, let's get to our guest, everybody. This is so exciting. I just love Jim. I met Jim in Los at the Spaced Out Radio fan party, and he makes a good dance partner too, y'all. I'm just saying. Okay, so let's get to our guest tonight. James Goodall's true passion has always been airplanes. He's been into airplanes and things that go bump or at least fast in the night since as far back as he can remember. He's been honored to have met some of the world's top aviation designers, pilots, maintenance guys, and support staff, working for the likes of Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and a few of the old aviation industries that were merged or no longer there. He's met with generals, admirals, and way too many political types. I understand that. To last a couple of lifetimes. He's been blessed to have in his cast of characters he calls friends Bob Lazar, who he was just with. We're going to talk about that tonight, y'all. John Lear, a dear friend of 45 plus years, and Mr. Ben Rich, the late retired president of the Lockheed Skunk Works. I say Lockheed Martin because I got that right here in my backyard, down here in Georgia. All right, so without further ado, help me welcome to Space Out Radio tonight, my friend, Jim Goodall.
Jessica, I'm delighted to be here.
Hey, Jim.
It was fun seeing with you in Las Vegas, and from there I jumped in my car and drove 11 hours to be fairly close to where Bob Lazar calls home. Spent the night in a hotel. Then next morning I spent a full day and evening and the part of the next day with Bob Lazar and his wife Joy, and just had a ball. And there's I have a couple pictures that I emailed to you so I can prove that I was with Bob. There we go. And those are two of my books. I told him, I said, hey, I'm sending you some books. This is about a year and a half ago. I said, all I want is you to hold in them and get a picture of you holding them. Well, he's good at putting things off. He's good at going into his lab and doing other things. Now, the picture, the picture that was just before this one was his lab, and he refers to as S5.
Oh, let's go back.
And he has 10 different areas of this building, and it's huge. I think it's a 30 by 40 or 30 by 50 building, and it's full. It has everything you can think of. Now, one of the things, I didn't wear it on for our talk tonight, but I have a United Nuclear T-shirt because he was wearing one. I said, "Would you have another one of those around?" He said, "No, but I'll go make one for you." So he went into his lab, got a silk screen machine, made me a United Nuclear T-shirt, and
Yeah.
so that was my present that I got from Bob, and it was just fun. I've known Bob since before he went to work out in the desert, and I met him through John Lear. And I knew John from John Lear from about 73 or 74 on. So, a good 50 years. And it's John Lear was one of the most unique people I've ever known, and he was a one of a kind. Mm-hmm. And in December of '88, the Air Force announced the existence of two stealth programs, the B-2 and the F-117. And I knew the F-117 was flying. So the first week of January of '89, I drive out I fly into Las Vegas, rent a car. I go over to John Lear's house, which I did every time I went to Vegas. And he said, we got to go find where this airplane is flying out of. And he said, well, I've been told it's Tonopah Test Range. It's outside the town of Tonopah. So I said, let's go. So we're heading, we jumped in the car. We're heading north on US 95. We're just past Scotty's Junction, which is about 2/3 of the way to Tonopah. And an F-117 flies over us at about 1,500 feet. I about crashed the car. It was unbelievable. So we get into the town of Tonopah. We grab a quick bite at the station house. Then we go up and we go east on US 6, about 14 miles of nothing out there. You're in the middle of nowhere now. But there's a big sign. It says Tonopah Test Range Sandia Corporation. And there's a B-61 nuke on a B-43 nuke on top of a rocket pill booster on top of the sign. So we head down that road 18 miles. You come up to the main gate of Tonopah Test Range, also referred to as TTR. And I'm retired military. I can get on most bases except those that are restricted area, and TTR is one of those. So we headed west along the fence line, which is public land. And there is, you're looking down 8 miles away, you can see the entire Tonopah Test Range complex. And I look to the north of me, and there's a little black dot, probably 15, 20 miles due north of us. And there's a little white light underneath, which is the landing light. So I figured the black dot was a F-117. And then another little blue dot or bluish white dot next to it with a light. I figured that has to be a chase plane, which would be a T-38. Now we're shooting Nikon cameras, but this is before digital. No one I knew had a digital camera in 1989. So I'm using color print film. I'm using Kodacolor 100. I have a 200 millimeter lens, a Nikon lens. And this F-117 is coming towards me. As it's filling my viewfinder, all of a sudden my body started vibrating. I was like a 10-year-old boy seeing a naked woman for the first time. I mean, I could not believe it. And I went through all 36 exposures, and I told Lear, hey, let's get out of here. I want to get to Vegas. I want to go to a photomat. Those you have to have white hair to know what a photomat is, or a good memory when you're little.
I know what a photomat is.
Yeah, but they used to, what they are now. They've been taken over by coffee baristas, and they sell coffee. But they used to go into the parking lot of a shopping center, and there'd be a reddish orange and yellow building that said Kodak on it, and you wouldn't even get out of your car. You open the door, open your window, you give you an envelope, you fill it out, you film in it, come back the next day. So we blasted on out of there. We were both getting hungry again, so we stopped a little alien for a quick bite. But I knew we weren't going to get back to Las Vegas until the photomats were closed. So it was going to be a couple of days before I can see what I shot. And I didn't know if everything was blurred because I was shaking so hard. So, John says, well, I have a buddy of mine. He just moved here from Albuquerque, and he'll be coming over. I'll let him know when we're going to arrive, and he should get there probably about 10 or 15 minutes later. So we get to Lear's house. It's about 9:15 p.m. and we're in his study. And we'd been there about 10 minutes, and someone knocks on the door. And John goes, answers the door, and in comes this very delightful young man, introduces himself as Bob Lazar. And we were chatting. I told him what my, the excitement we had the day, earlier in the day that I photographed the F-117. Said, but I have to wait. I was really, bummed out because I have to wait until probably 2 days to get the prints out to see if I have anything. And he said, well, I have a C-41 processing unit at home. I live off of West Charleston. Lear lives up near Nellis, sort of behind Sunrise Mountain. So let's go over to my place, and I'll process the film, and if there's something good, we'll print some prints out. So we jump in his car, and we're about a block from Lear's house, and he looks at me and he said, I feel sorry for that dumb SOB Lear. I said, what do you mean? I said, hell, he's from this world famous aviation family. His dad brought Learjet to the world, plus invented a lot of avionics that we use still today. And he says, and the idiot believes in UFOs. He says, I'm a nuclear physicist. If I can't prove it mathematically or put my hands on it, it doesn't exist. And said, you couldn't put a gun to my head to convince me that UFOs were real. I said, oh, okay. I mean, I believed him. That was until he became a silhouetted head talking to George Knapp, and his name was Jared, and he altered his voice and his profile and said that he was hired on to do reverse engineering of alien spacecraft. And I've supported, I believe, Bob from day one. And, people poo-pooed him and say, element 115, don't hand me that crap. That doesn't exist. Well, it does exist. Matter of fact, the Swiss and a few other countries have actually created element 115. Now there's some subgroups of 115 that are stable. Apparently the ones they've created so far are not stable. But it was everything that they looked at Bob and said, well, he's a plant, he's full of baloney. You don't tell someone that you feel sorry for John Lear because he believes in UFOs, and I'm a nuclear physicist. If I can't prove it mathematically or put my hands on it, I mean, these are quotes from Bob Lazar to me, and he's real. His story has never changed.
Yeah.
He went behind the radar for 25 years. It wasn't until 2015 when he decided to speak at a MUFON function in Phoenix in 2015. And I hadn't seen him a bunch of years, and we've stayed in contact. And people said, why don't you have a lot of pictures of you and Bob? I said, because you generally don't take a lot of pictures of friends of yours. Now you can with digital cameras and cell phones, but back in the 80s, 70s, the 80s, even the early 90s, no one had a phone they can take pictures with. Now everybody has one of these incredible. You can't see it very well.
In your hand.
Yeah, one of these idiot things. And I call mine
a tracking device.
Yeah, it's actually a leash, and they can call me Fido because everywhere you go, they know where you're at.
That's
Unless you've disconnected and halted the location ID, you can do that on an iPhone.
I did that. No GPS on my phone.
Yeah, me too. So
we know better. We're smart.
Yeah. So I had a wonderful day and a half with Bob. I even asked him, I said, okay, you told me in January of '89 that you didn't believe in UFOs. And he says, absolutely. I said, there was no way excuse me, there's no way that I could agree to the fact that UFOs were real until I went
No
to
way,
work
huh?
out there. Yeah. So
Of course. Of
yeah.
course.
So the rest is
Wow.
history. The rest is history. And Bob feels that it's just a matter of time until something pops. And he said it may happen soon. Apparently, he has
Until
some
the truth
insight.
gets out there? Okay.
Well, I think the truth is trying to get out, but you have a lot of naysayers. Now,
Yeah.
earlier you had put something up about
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Greer's disclosure event. I was there. I was there for the 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a
Oh,
chance to
there
talk.
was, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat had seen you there. That's someone in the chat had put that up that said that they had taken you to coffee while you were there.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I know who they are. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, the people were great.
Okay.
And at the 2 days at the Marriott, actually 3 days. It was Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Then Monday was the Washington Press Club, and that was full. That venue was full. And they had 6 whistleblowers. A couple of them really need to go after and get a pound of flesh out of our government because one of them, super guy, and he was heartfelt. This was coming from his heart, and it wasn't a line. His father went from being a successful aerospace engineer to being losing his clearance, losing his job. They bankrupted him, took his house. His father and his dad never spoke to him again after he saw a UFO. He walked into an area and they had either a body or a craft. I can't remember which one. There was a lot of stuff going on in there.
Oh my.
And his father more or less disowned him, and his dad was his very, very best friend. And never spoke. His dad never spoke to him again, and ended up dying about a year later, flat broke.
Tragic.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that. It just fries my fanny something terrible that our government would go out and do that. I got to turn something on just a second. Yeah, it was getting too bright on my shiny head, so I had to turn off.
You're looking good, Jim.
Okay.
You look good.
Yeah, but I have my background shot up. Even though I live in Tucson, we do get snow, and that stuff behind me, that white stuff on the ground, that must be from Dave Scott.
It's from Dave Scott. He's in the chat.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
It's got to be Dave.
Oh yeah, because he's the one you always call me little Jimmy Goodall.
He's in all caps. Little Jimmy Goodall.
Yeah.
That's right.
I love him. And I know the moment I met Dave, instantly, and like I told him, it was like meeting an old friend for the first time.
That's right.
And I just think the world of Dave and virtually everybody he has on his program. I mean, Tim Seymour and I know him more than most of his guests, but I like them all. And Science Bob, the whole crew, and you're part of this game.
The Cryptid Huntress.
Yeah. So
we have a good family over here. We have a really good time, and very knowledgeable too. And we're all just looking for answers to all of this weird stuff going on in our world right now, and that includes UFOs and things like that.
Well, I have my brother's nickname. Most of his life has been Sasquatch or Squatch.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, your brother?
Yeah, he's. I haven't seen him in 20 years, but he's like 6'4", 6'5". At the time, he was 450, but he wore a size 17 triple E shoe. I had a pair of wingtips on.
Is he hairy?
Yeah, and hairy. I had a pair of wingtips on, and I put his tennis shoes over my wingtips. And I have big feet. I have size 12 or 13. Wow. and I was able to put his shoe on over my shoe. So
that is so funny.
He's been known as Squatch forever, and he lives in the
So
Pacific.
you're related to Sasquatch.
Yep,
like
I'm related to a Sasquatch. Yeah,
that is too funny. Well, okay. Well, I have to ask you this question, okay? Because I want to get into a little bit of Area 51 tonight. You know, my crowd, a lot of the people that watch my shows, we're really into cryptids and weird, you know, animal human hybrids and gosh knows what. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about you getting to meet Buzz Aldrin, who went to the moon.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Tell me what he said when you asked him about UFOs.
I was a restoration manager at the Museum of Flight in Seattle, and I was in charge of the restoration of the de Havilland Comet, the world's first jet airliner. And my boss, Tom Cathcart, was supposed to have a luncheon over at Future of Flight. It's at Payne Field. It's the other side of the field from our restoration hangar. And about 11 o'clock, I get a call from Tommy, and he said, I'm tied up in a meeting up here. I can't go. You know, I called him and told him that you're replacing me. So have a good lunch. So hell, that sounded good to me. So I go over there. I sit down, and I wasn't paying attention who was sitting off to my right. But I was just looking out the window as some brand new 787s were taking off or taxiing, and all of a sudden I look over, and the guy sitting next to me is Buzz Aldrin.
Whoa!
And he turned around and says, "I'm Buzz Aldrin." I said, "Well, I think the whole world knows who you are." He said, "I'm Jim Goodall. I'm Tom Cathcart was supposed to be here, and he got hung up, so he asked me to join him." And I says, "I'm just absolutely thrilled beyond belief to meet you." And I said, "What is your thought on UFOs? Are they real?" And he got this smirk on his face, and he's turned his back to me and came back and just sort of indicated that he wasn't going to say anything, but he had answers to my question. He just wasn't in a position to say anything at that time. I mean, I pulled that stunt on a number of people. When I went in for my book signing for my 75 years of Lockheed Skunk Works, I went to the Skunk Works on June 3rd of 2021. I'm there with the Vice President General Manager, the #1 skunk, Jeff Babion. And I'm signing books. They ordered a whole about 10 cases of them to be passed out to people. But I signed a couple dozen of them. And he said, well, we went and he showed me some stuff there in that little museum. And then he said, we're going to go over to the U2 side, over at Site 2. So we jump in the back of this Cadillac limousine, and we're heading over to the other side. And I looked at him right in the eye, and I said, Jeff, I got a question. I said, what's that? He said, how much UFO/alien technology is being utilized in Skunk Works programs? And he came back almost instantly. I don't know if he was prepared to come back if someone like me would ask a question. He said, I have absolutely no knowledge of any UFO technology that's been utilized in any of our programs. I said, that doesn't mean that something happened before I got here and it's beyond my pay grade to know what it is. I said, from Lockheed's point of view, we make no comment on UFOs. Personally, I feel we can't be alone. We can't be the only ones. But I was surprised by the fact that he wasn't surprised I asked the question. But I didn't get an answer that I thought that would answer my question. But
right. But you didn't get a no.
Yeah.
You got an open-ended rhetorical answer is what you got.
And
I like that.
So,
I mean, I guess.
Now, before my dad passed away, he lived in Tullahoma, Tennessee. And a friend of mine who's an SR-71 pilot, a retired pilot, Dave Fruehauf, lived in Lynchburg, Tennessee, which is the home of Jack Daniels. And it's a dry county, by the way. It's kind of ironic. And I was visiting my dad before he died.
What?
And I
Goodness.
called I
Dracula.
called Dave Fruehauf, and he said, "Are you home?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You up for an interview?" And he said, "Sure." He says, "I'm only 11 miles away." So I head over to Dave's place, and we talk about he crashed. He had to bail out of an SR-71 trainer when it had a total electrical failure, and
Oh
it
my
crashed 5
gosh.
miles. It crashed 5 miles north of the end of the runway at Beale. So I said, "Yeah." He
Wow.
went through. We talked about that, and I said, "I got a question. Do you believe in UFOs?" And he said, "Absolutely, positively, they do exist." I said, "Do you want to expand upon that?" I figured he was going to say, "Well, no, not really." He said, "Sure." And my head got real big, and I said, "Okay, what? When?" He said it was late 72, early 73. I'm on a night mission. I'm flying out of Kadena, Okinawa. I'm in the far western Pacific. He said it's 11 p.m. at night. I'm at 78,000 feet. I'm going at Mach 2.7, which is about 1,800 miles an hour, 1,900 miles an hour ground speed. And it was a three-quarter moon off to the left side. And I noticed something 5 or 6 miles off to my right and 5 or 6,000 feet above me, something that was reflective, that was going at the same speed and direction as me. So I said, I got on secure voice. I called Kadena, Okinawa, where he's flying out of Detachment 1 of the 9th Strategic Reconnaissance Wing. So we have another bird up. I said, "No, you were there briefing today. You're the only one up." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna go take a look." Now he didn't want to open up his faceplate but he's getting glints from the instrument lights. And he was hoping he could see a blank area where the stars are being blotted out. At 85,000 feet, you have a trillion stars out there. At sea level on a clear night, non-polluting area, the human eye can see about 9,000. Up there, it's nothing but stars. And he said he didn't want to risk open up his faceplate. So he advanced the throttle at Mach 2.7. The throttle engine is absolutely minimum military power. So he advances the throttle. He's about a 10-degree bank. He starts climbing and heading towards this object. He figures when he was still 1,000 or so feet below it and still more than a mile away from it, this thing took off. And he said he lost track of it as it was passing between 180 and 200,000 feet. And he left me like I was heading the other direction. So I figured the speed that he left me at was in the neighborhood of Mach 12, Mach 16, something like that, but probably right around Mach 12, which is right around 8,000 miles an hour.
Wow.
And I don't, he didn't say if he made a report on it. I know back then it was a career killer if you talked about UFOs, if you say you'd chase one. My boss with the Minnesota Air Guard was Major General Wayne Gatlin. And I asked General Gatlin, I said, "Hey, General Gatlin, this is back in the 80s. This is before I met Lazar, before all the UFO stuff. I said, I got a question. Let's assume, now I retired as a master sergeant, I'm not a pilot. I said, let's assume that I'm an F-4 pilot. I'm over, I'm flying out of Duluth and I see a UFO and I chase it. I try to lock on, and every time I lock on, my weapons radar dies. What do I do?" He said, "Well, you come in, you do your debrief. When we finish doing that, you go to the club, you get pound down, 3 or 4 really strong drinks, go back to your billet and forget what you saw." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because it is a guaranteed career killer back then. You don't mention it to anybody. You don't say anything about it to anybody." I said, "Well, what if I wanted to report it?" I said, when Blue Book ended, I think in 68, there wasn't a formal path to report a UFO incident. So you go to public affairs and tell them, "Hey, I chased a UFO in a F-94C, or I chased a UFO in a 2,100 mile an hour blackbird. You don't do that back then. Now they've taken the stigma away from talking about it. So what's his name? Last name is Day. I can't remember. My mind just went blank. He's a Navy guy in the Nimitz. He's a retired senior chief petty officer, and he's the one who saw the Tic Tac on the Nimitz and reported it. So, but today you can report UFOs and it's not going to kill your career. So it's times have changed. And the other thing, I was
Wow.
yeah, Kevin Day. Thank you. I knew his last name was Day. I just, for whatever reason, I had a brain fart. But every day more and more things are coming out. But for a couple of years, when I retired I was a museum curator at the Pacific Aviation Museum in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and it was time to retire, and I couldn't retire in Hawaii. When the average 2-bedroom house is $1.2 million, it's pretty hard to have anything that since I've had too many ex-wives, so I don't have anything left. But
Right.
but when I retired down here in Tucson, I've always loved looking at the sky, and if I can remember, I was on the extraterrestrial highway going to Rachel. This is early 90s. I'm by the black mailbox. I'm by myself. It's just a sliver of a moon. The sky is perfectly clear, and they went down below the horizon. It was so dark I couldn't see my feet. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if you can read minds, abduct me. But let me bring my Nikon with me.
Oh gosh. You asked for
and
that?
I don't care what you abduct me and just return me all in one piece when you're done. And nothing happened. And I'm outside every night with my dog. That's where we sit at the end of the evening. And we don't have any streetlights in our neighborhood. And the skies in southern Arizona are crystal clear. And I sit there and I look and I say, okay, damn it. Everybody I know has seen or had an experience with an abduction or chased one or whatever. And not me. Why? But I volunteered as a docent up at Kitt Peak National Observatories. They're about 50 some odd miles west of downtown Tucson. There are 22 optical telescopes there, everything from a 12-inch to a 4-meter, which is 13 feet across for the primary mirror. And one of the telescopes, the 2.1 meter, which is about an 8-foot primary mirror, was under contract from Caltech. And for 5 years, they were looking for exoplanets remotely. And thank you. You're welcome, Paul. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Yeah,
we appreciate
it had adaptive optics, and it was remote. It was remote operation. And what happened? They because the sky is so crystal clear here, but you do get some distortion. So when they were looking for exoplanets, they would shine a UV laser up, and at exactly 18 miles high, the beam has to be so many centimeters or nanometers across. And the computer adjusts the deforming secondary mirror 1,200 times a second to remove any type of jitter or anything caused by atmospheric disturbance. And it had the comparable resolution as the Hubble Space Telescope. So over the 5 years of Caltech looking for exoplanets, and this is in a postage stamp size area of our Milky Way, not outside of our Milky Way, but within our Milky Way.
Tiny little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they cataloged 8,000 exoplanets. And
oh my gosh, that
just
little
before,
bit.
yeah, just before I left, my knees were giving me trouble, and everything is up and down. I mean, you start up here, you have to go down, and you go back up, go down, go back up, and my knees were killing me. And I wasn't a big fan of the
Oh,
volunteer coordinator. I don't like people talking down to me. I think I'm an idiot because
right.
I'm
Nobody
not.
does.
Yeah, no,
Right.
right. So it was time for me
Right.
to leave anyway. But just before we left,
Totally.
we had a beer and pizza function at the
Okay.
at the NOAO, which is the National Optical Astronomy Observatories, and
Okay.
the
I like beer and pizza.
yeah, and the keynote speaker
I'd
was
stay for that.
from the National Science Foundation. He was there to talk about exoplanets. He had just returned from a worldwide gathering of everybody, every astronomer, every telescope in the world that is looking for and cataloging exoplanets. And based on proven mathematical formulas, with all the information they had from all the different observatories, including Kitt Peak here in Tucson, they came to the conclusion that for every star in the universe, there's 1.5 planets. Now think about that number. I mean, you can't even calculate the decimal points of the number of stars in the universe. And for every star, there's 1.5 planets. And they calculate, again, using proven mathematical formulas, out of that incredibly huge number of planets, they calculate that there are 2 billion, that's with a B, 2 billion Earth-like planets orbiting a similar sized brown dwarf star as our sun in the inhabitable zone with liquid water. If we're the only ones,
wow,
what a waste of space. And that's Jodie Foster's quote
exactly.
in Carl Sagan's movie Contact. So we're not alone.
I love that movie.
And I've never thought we're alone. And I think there's aliens among us. I think my daughter is one. I really do, because she doesn't think like anybody I know.
Yeah.
And she's brilliant. Oh, by the way, I see your little Sasquatch in the corner down there waving, saying hi. Right.
Oh yeah, that's my friend, my Sasquatch.
Yeah,
right.
That's cute.
Yeah. I agree with you, Jim. I think that there are aliens walking amongst us, extraterrestrial life. I think that I think this world is not what we've been taught, first of all, and I think that's interesting. Now, I do want to. What do you think about that?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, the James Webb Space Telescope has just thrown out every assumption that physics, the astrophysicists have been using for information forever. And now, because of the James Webb Space Telescope, everything they thought was real doesn't exist. Now, they were looking at a 4-galaxy shot. And according to the redshift, and that's how they measure how far away you are, that those galaxies are almost 1 billion light years before the Big Bang. So all of a sudden, the thought that we had a Big Bang, that theory is now thrown out the window. And when they get, now there's an Earth-based telescope that's being built because of the scandemic. It was delayed. It was supposed to get first light sometime in early 22, but it probably will not get first light until sometime in 2024. But it's the Giant Magellan Telescope that utilizes 7 27-foot diameter primary mirrors for the equivalent of a mirror that's 100 feet across. And it's at 16,000 feet in altitude in Chile. It's 200 miles from the nearest city, so there's no light pollution, there's no air pollution, and it's one of the driest places on the planet. And they said that this is before the James Webb Space Telescope went into orbit, those that were talking about it said they should be able to see within 100,000 years of first light. Now, with the revelation from James Webb, maybe there's no end to the universe. Maybe
not.
It's always been there. I mean, there has to be a beginning, there has to be an end.
Mm-hmm.
But to have it a billion light years, before, according to redshift, which is fairly accurate in determining distance, it's between 800 million and a billion light years before the Big Bang, supposedly. So every time I get a new instrument, something new, and we can look farther back into time and into history, we realize how much we don't know. You think we have all the answers, and then you come up with something like this, and they say, well, I got to throw that book out, and I got to throw that book out. And all these astrophysicists have spent their life heading in this direction. All of a sudden, the everything is saying, hell no, everything that you thought you were doing over here is garbage. We're over here, 180 degrees different from what you think your career field is. So all the books are being pitched.
That's right.
All the papers written by PhDs are all being, well, they're not relevant anymore, because we've proven the fact that it's all bunk. We have a totally different view of the universe, and it doesn't. It doesn't. Excuse me. So.
Yeah, Jim. So before we go tonight, we still have a few minutes. We got about 10 more minutes or a little bit more than that. And I have to ask you about something that is the center of a lot of conspiracy theories. Okay. And you happen to be my resident expert on it. Okay. You're my resident expert on Area 51. That's a topic of debate and discussion, and people believe that there could be aliens over there and extraterrestrial life being hidden away somewhere on Area 51. Tell me what you know about Area 51, Jim.
Dave Fruehauf, who's the Blackbird pilot that I interviewed that chased a UFO, when he retired from the Air Force, now he had this real high security clearance. You already know most everybody in the black world, and that's spooky programs world. He got a job as facility manager at Area 51. And he was responsible for every single structure above and below the surface at Area 51. And he was responsible for all non-program aircraft as well. He did photo chase with against F-117, against Have Blue, against Tacit Blue, and a bunch of others. So he said, when you're dealing in a classified environment, you don't go in there on day one start asking questions, because they'll boot your ass right out of there. And he said he was there about a year before, at the club in the evenings. He said, hey, I got a question. And he's talking to a bunch of guys that have been there for 10 years. He said, I got a question. I said, did we ever flight test something here before I got here that can go Mach 12, Mach 15? And said, well, it wasn't flown here. Nothing. I mean, I know people who've been there since day one, and I've talked to a lot of them, and they all say, not here. Well, if not here, where? So I asked him, I said, well, how about underground facilities? He said, if there were an underground facility within the confines of Area 51, I would be responsible for it. Now, Area 51 is right next to Area 52, and just before that is Area 50. It is the reason why it's called Area 51. When they were doing above ground nuclear detonations, they needed to be able to track fallout. So each one of those squares are 10 miles square. So,
okay.
So it could have been Area 52. It could have been Area 23 if it, depending on where they put the grid. I was in the control room for the Nevada test site. I was in there with Stu Brown from Popular Science, Bill Sweetman from Aviation Week and a guy named Warren James, who is really a rocket scientist. And we were out getting a tour of the Sedan crater and all the stuff on the Nevada test site. We hear the radio going off. So-and-so, this is security. You have a Mr. Goodall with you? I said, yes, we do. He said, will you have Mr. Goodall and his the people who are accompanying him? They have to go into a building for the next 90 minutes. They were flying something they didn't want me to see.
What?
But they knew I was out there.
Oh, no.
I mean, I was at the fence line of Tonopah Test Range with John Lear, and we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'll get through as fast. And this is like June of...
We got 10 more minutes. We're good.
Yeah, June of 96, and it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I think it was 11 o'clock. We're out there with the lawn chairs. We have night vision goggles. We have our lawn chairs. We taped up your cuff of your pants, keep the scorpions from going up your pant leg. And we're just sitting there. We have our feet up in the barbed wire. And we see 3 armored personnel carriers coming from us. One from the south, one from the west, one from the east. And I stand up because I can see them. They don't know we have night vision on. I yell out real loud, hey, we're good guys. We're taxpayers. All of a sudden, we have floodlights on us. John has 3 little red dots in his chest. I have 3 little red dots in my chest.
Oh.
About the same time, the vehicle came down the public land side of the fence. The guy comes around John's pickup truck. He has his hand on his Beretta, his 9mm. He's in Desert Utilities. He said, you're in a restricted area and I'm ordering you to leave. And I said, sir, I don't know who you are, but this is public lands. I said, you're in a restricted area and I'm ordering you to leave. I said, pulled out my aeronautical map and I said, according to this official government publication, the longitude and latitude of the restricted area is this. And if you look at the fence post next to my buddy, there's a USGS medallion that gives the longitude and latitude to the second. I'm in public lands. I can be here for 15 consecutive days without asking anybody's permission. And he's getting mad. And he said, I want to see some ID. I said, who are you? He says, I'm Captain so-and-so with ASI, Advanced Security, Inc. I said, sir, you're a rent-a-cop and you have no jurisdiction on this side of the fence. And you could just see his blood vessels in his head popping out and jaws are tightening up. I said, I want to see some ID. I said, well, I don't have to show you squat. He said, well, I've been deputized by the state of Nevada, Esmeralda, Lincoln, and Nye County to uphold the laws of the federal government and the state of Nevada. And I said, well, good for you. And I'm being as sarcastic as I can be. So I said, I tell you what, you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
I don't blame you. That's good.
You show me yours, I'll show you mine. Yeah. And so he hands me his ASI badge. And I said, sir, that's not a valid form of ID. I need something issued by the state or federal government. And you can just see those jaws are tightening up even more. And so he hands me his Nevada driver's license. I don't have these on, I can't read it. And I pulled out. I lived in Minnesota at the time. I pulled out my driver's license. You
had him handing him his driver's license?
Yeah, he hands me his driver's license.
You had this rent-a-cop hand you his driver's license.
Yeah,
that's pretty badass. I'm just saying. I can appreciate
he had proof that he had some ID, and then Lear hands his driver's license to him. I hand him my Minnesota license. He hands it to a guy in the south side of the fence. Goes over to the supervisor. I see the supervisor light turn on in his armored personnel carrier. And I don't know if I can say this, but I'll say it anyway. And he said, oh shit, it's Goodall and Lear. And all of a sudden the lights went away.
Oh my gosh.
The little red dots turned off and they dispersed. They knew they weren't going to intimidate us out of the area. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one of my fun things.
It's good to know your laws. When you're out there doing, you're just observing, you're on near Area 51 or wherever you're at. It's good to know the laws of the land, the laws of the area, and know your rights as a U.S. citizen. Okay, for all of us who are here in the U.S. or whatever country you're in, y'all. I know I got people watching from all over the world. Yeah, but know your laws.
I was working with George Knapp during the Storm Area 51 thing in September of 19. And I
Oh,
was both at,
that was
I was,
wild, right?
oh, it was. There was actually more security people out there than there were participants because there was 5
Whoa.
million people said they were going to come. The state of Nevada doesn't have 5 million people in it. And in Lincoln, Esmeralda, and Nye County, there's less than 180 beds to be rented out in hotels and motels. And they have that many people. So,
yeah.
But one of the things that happened just before the Storm Area 51, a buddy of mine who said, if you have a star on your shoulder or eagles on your shoulder, I drink with everybody at Nellis, who was either a bird colonel or a general officer. And said that the word had come down from the Pentagon that under no circumstances will anybody be allowed to penetrate the perimeter. And the security people within Area 51 have no jurisdiction outside the fence line. And so they put the Nevada Army Guard on alert because they were going to activate the military police. But what they did, they got all the non-lethal crowd control equipment that was available. They brought it all. And there's only two places they can come, the north fence line or over the back road out of Tippecanoe Valley. And they had the microwave system, which makes you feel like you're on fire. It doesn't do any damage to you, but it'll. And then they had the brown sound. The brown sound is extremely low frequency sound. And when it hits you, your bowels empty out. So if
that'd be messy.
So your level of enthusiasm is diminished considerably if you have a pants full of poop.
Yeah, that's not my way to go. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. So
what a mess.
And also the gentleman that was going to be, I didn't write his name down, that going to be coming after you.
Oh my gosh.
The one that has the program after you, the after hours.
Oh,
thing.
you're talking about Marquise. Yeah, he's not making it tonight. He was going to come on, but he can't.
Oh, okay. I was going to tell him, well, just send me a link and I'll come on your show with you. I haven't,
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. If you're interested, we can get you on his show for a few minutes after this one tonight. If you're interested,
that would be fun.
Yeah, I'll hop on with you if you want. Yeah, we can both go over there. Okay. I'll tell Marquise is listening probably. Marquise, we'll come on with you. I'll send you the link. Okay.
But and then we have your area of passion is Sasquatch and other things that are along the similar lines. And they keep finding mammals and other creatures. I mean, they're finding stuff in Vietnam, mammals that aren't in any specific family of animals that we know about. So the fact that a Sasquatch could be alive in the forests of America and Canada is probably a piece of cake. I mean, I spent a lot of time as a kid in the Coast Mountains in California, and I've done a lot of camping and whatever in the Sierra Nevadas and the Rockies. And there's places that there's over 800 airplanes that have crashed in the mountains, either in the Rockies or the Sierra Nevadas, that they've never found the crash sites. They're military aircraft primarily. It's a lot of them during World War II. So if a Sasquatch doesn't want to be seen, and they may be able to change the wavelength of their outer coating, their fur, to a wavelength that you and I can't see.
That's right. That's what I think too.
And there's been some pictures. There's one that's been on Facebook. It shows a Sasquatch. He's about 15 or 18 feet tall, and it looks to be a photo taken back 120 years ago. So yeah. Well, and the problem these days is we've got all this AI stuff going on, Jim. Yeah. So it's hard to tell what's real and what's fake now. This is true.
I think I can tell, but yeah, it's a little difficult. And but you know what? I'm out here searching for Bigfoot. You're out here just doing your thing, Jim. I love this. Thank you so much. You know, I am not an expert in UFOs whatsoever, but I have experienced several of them myself. And and the aviation thing, I mean, I do live right down the road from Lockheed Martin, by the way. I
Yeah.
live literally less than an hour from Lockheed. Yeah.
Well,
So we
last
have a
time
lot of planes flying over.
Yeah, last time I was in Marietta, they were still building the C-5B. So you can't realize just how big a hangar is. I think it's 72 acres, the main production facility. And they had 3 C-5 Galaxies just without wings stuffed in the corner of this hangar. And you don't realize how big an airplane is until you see it apart.
Wow.
And you know, they haven't put the sections together yet. And it's just it was a fun place to go and do a photo shoot. So, and I love that. I love Atlanta. My favorite place to go dancing is on Roswell Boulevard or Road, and it's called Johnny's Hideaway. It's just north of Buckhead.
Oh yeah,
it's on
the
east
Hideaway,
side
right?
Johnny's
Hideaway.
Wednesday nights, ladies' nights.
It's still there.
Yeah, and they play 50s and 60s rock and roll. Yeah, that's my favorite. So, but I've had a wonderful time, and you know the
Ladies,
time just.
You heard it here first. Jim Goodall is at Johnny's Hideaway.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be doing a photo shoot at Kings Bay, Georgia. I have to finish covering one of the Ohio boats, and I'm going to spend a couple of days in Atlanta, and I will spend at least Wednesday night at Johnny's Hideaway. And I'll Lisa, you're next to Woods, and we'll go out to dinner.
Well, you let me know when you're in Atlanta, and
I will.
Yes, let me know when you're in town, and I'm going to come hang out with you. Okay, yes, absolutely. Okay, well, Jim, if people wanted to find you, where can they find you and get in touch with you? Do you have a website?
No, I'm on Facebook, and the only reason I'm on there is because that's how I keep track of people. But that's the only place you'll find me. And I'm on a couple podcasts. I'm on with Ron Mason on Wednesdays and Jared Murphy's on Thursdays. But I'm a writer. I have 29 books in print. And you go into Amazon and go in books by James C. Goodall, and you'll see my books on the Blackbird, on 75 years of the Skunk Works, on the stealth bomber, and on submarines. They're black, they're deadly, and they're stealth. So that's my passion.
Wow.
And I've had an absolutely delightful time with you, and the hour just went poof, and it was gone. Yeah. So you have a good one.
That's how we roll over here. And thank you. I had an amazing time, Jim. Thank you so much. I'm sorry my computer is lagging a little bit tonight. If you're interested, if you'd like to come on, if you'll wait after I take you backstage, I'm going to give you a link, and we'll hop on Marquise's show for a few minutes. If you'd like, I'll come over there with you, and we can go hang out with Marquise. So I'm going to take you backstage. You wait for me, okay?
All right.
I'll see you in a second.
All right, dear.
All right, Jim. Thank you for being here. This has been amazing.
My pleasure.
Okay, see ya. All right, y'all. Okay, so y'all heard it here first. I am going to be with Jim for just a few minutes over at Marquise's show, and that's going to be a good time. I will see you guys next week on Off the Trails here on Space Out Radio. I hope y'all have an amazing week, and please join me on the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. I will see y'all there. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see y'all in a few minutes. Bye.